What's going on, Force of Will players? Ryan Miles here from On Tilt Gaming, here with episode 6 of our Force of Will daily series. Today's topic is going to be influenced by the Grand Prix in Nagoya a week ago in Japan. And I think for the first time, and I could be wrong about this, but from my understanding of having watched the Japanese meta over the past year and a half, for the first time since Lumia's release, I believe, we did not see a Lumia deck in the entire top 8 of this Grand Prix. And not only that, but all 8 decks in the top 8 were Scheherazade. And Jeff Finnegan, the global liaison, has said in the past that he will take action on the ban list as the statistics deem it necessary. And I think with this being the absolute final nail in the coffin, with a GP having 8 of 8 slots being completely Scheherazade, that's like the complete, the deck has to be hit in some way. So Europe has already taken a pretty interesting stance on it with their Rhea cluster and their Wanderer ban lists. Europe decided that Ruin Stories was obviously a major problem. But they also banned Ava across both formats, and they also banned Trueblade and I believe Lorite in both formats. They didn't ban anything in New Frontiers yet, but that does kind of give you an idea of what Europe thinks is the problem. But they elected not to touch New Frontiers at all, probably or partially because they don't really have that many New Frontiers tournaments coming up. They are doing more Rhea Cluster and Wanderer events, but also the company may have asked them not to. I hope that's a possibility, because I really think it's a bad thing when a region that does not have access to the upcoming sets, like they don't get to playtest the new cards that are coming out, they try and make a ban list, and then the company feels pressured to follow that ban list because different regions have been testing it just because they're so tired of playing. Last time we saw this was with the Prisia, Captain Hook, and Fox, or Griffin ban, sorry. Europe banned those cards in October, and the company didn't follow suit until January. And then by the time that, the ban list did come out officially from Force of Will, I don't even feel that it was necessarily the best move. It was just the only thing they could do, because everyone was so oh my god, we want this ban list because we've been playing with it and we think it's really good. And okay, people don't know anything. It ended up being a it was a kind of interesting meta, but I promise you, if it had gone on any longer, Red Green Fair was the only deck. That's just silly to me. I think that Lumia should have been really, really good, and I think Lumia could be really, really good now if it wasn't for Scheherazade. But I'll get to that in a second, right? So let's talk about the European ban list first. Talk about what I would ban if I was in charge of Force of Will, if I had Jeff's job, and then talk about what I actually think is going to happen. So Ruin Stories, first card, right? Ruin Stories, I think, is a really, really interesting and fun card that gives a lot of options to the player and is not at all overbearing, as long as the ruler is not Scheherazade. So the best part about that card is the fact that it gets to flip down 2 stories, and there's no other card in Scheherazade's arsenal that really has that kind of power. And the fact that Scheherazade gets to do that while also having these 3 other options available, when you think about Scheherazade as a deck, right? It's starting the game with an extra 5 cards in hand, which sounds really, really good on paper. But what's actually happening is they're starting with a 9-card hand or an 8-card hand, because they have 4 different modes on this Ruin Story. So you're playing around 5 cards, but you're really playing around 8 different effects, which really is what makes Scheherazade so versatile and so powerful. And yeah, against the aggro decks, they can Wall of Wind you, they can make you banish a Resonator. Against the value decks, they can flip, the control decks, they can flip down 2 stories to constantly approaching the truth and draw more cards than you, or they can get back a Resonator to, have a swing turn with a Genie, or get back a Lorite to stop a powerful play that you want to do. They just have so many options available to them from 1 card, right? So I think that's something that is really, really bad when it's a card that you have outside of the game, but as a card itself, when it's only got 3 real effects, right? When it doesn't have the flip 2 stories down, it's only Wall of Wind, which is incredibly situational, and then the banish a Resonator or get Resonator back. Those are very fair effects. Wall of Wind is pretty bad for a 2-mana effect. We saw it. There's actually the Wall of Wind card that's 1 mana in the Wanderer format. So for 2 mana, it's strictly worse, but because it's got other effects attached to the card, the downside is bearable, because you can just catch your opponent off guard with it, because it's something they don't always think about, when you're playing a green-black X non-Scheherazade deck. I like that a lot. I like the ability to banish an opponent's Resonator, because there are sticky threats that you can't remove very easily with barrier and whatnot. You know, not in this format right now, but like those cards do exist. They're just not in the format right now because Scheherazad's dominating everything. And then yeah, like the ability to buy back Resonator has counterplay. Like there's just a lot of cool things you can do when you have one card that has 3 different effects, and a lot of mind games you can play with your opponent. But when you just have access to that all the time in Scheherazade, it's just completely broken. So I would really like to see a ban list where Ruin Stories stays legal, just so that it can be played in decks that aren't Scheherazade. And I'll talk about why I think that we can make a ban list, you know, that facilitates that in a second. So next card is Ava. And I'm completely on board with this, especially after playing the Fox deck I played this weekend against Scheherazade. Like, the main problem that I couldn't like beat was the fact that Ava was just so big and came down so soon, and I just could not take that much damage and then stabilize the late game. So I'm trying to play this grindy control deck, and if I'm playing a controlled, like if I'm playing like a slow grindy Fox deck against Scheherazade, and if somehow I don't get killed on like turn 4 by Avas, we get to that slow grindy late game, like you actually have a fun game of Force of Will, and it's kind of dumb that Scheherazade can keep up in that slow grindy game while also having the accidental possibility of killing you on turn 4, because they play a 10-10 on turn 2, and then they play another one on turn 3, and they're just hitting you for 10, and they're Trueblading your blockers, and they're Ruin Storiesing your blockers, and they're making you discard cards with Genie. Like, it just gets out of hand too quickly. So they shouldn't be an aggro deck and a control deck. They're playing this like really tempo style. I think Ava is like the big problem with that. Patrol Doll being whole mana more with only 100 more attack, I think is completely fair. I think Patrol Doll's fine. I think that if the deck still wants to be a tempo style deck, it'll be able to do that with Patrol Doll, but Ava's just absolutely insane. So if you do like want to, so I can agree, like so far, I would like to see Ruin Stories somehow be legal, but it's difficult to say why without just completely destroying the rest of the deck. But I think the Ava ban is actually very, very smart and very, very heads up. Ava is really stopping other slower decks from being able to compete with Scheherazade, and even like faster decks, right? Even Keurig just getting, like, they want to hit you with their 6/6 that should be unblockable, and then you flash in an 8/8 and it blocks it, and it's like, how is that ever fair, right? One thing that I like to use as a reference for like the power level of Ava, which I think is completely, absolutely absurd, is that a lot of the golems from the Pandora archetype, the ones with Mobilize, like, the 2-mana golems are not 10/10s. They are like 8/8s or something, and they have Mobilize. They have downside. Ava is an 8/8 or better with quick cast. She has upside. That's like you just look at the different cards, and you can just see the absolute disparity in the power level. So I think Ava being banned is completely fine on the European list, right? And then they talk about Trueblade. Trueblade is a problematic card that should not have been printed, but do I think it should be banned? It's a very difficult question. If you watched my interview with Benjamin Margetzi, we talked about this a lot and got his opinions, and I said some of my stuff about it. I think that the Trueblade Sacred Elf pendulum is a very, very scary thing to mess with. I really like having Trueblade forcing Sacred Elf out of the meta, because I think that decks that get to play Sacred Elf can run away with games very quickly in a way that it's difficult to interact with. So, for example, if we don't have Trueblade and I'm playing a green deck and I play Sacred Elf on turn 1, the absolute best thing that you can do to my Sacred Elf is to kill it immediately for 1 mana. That means that I have played 1 card and you have played 1 card. I have played 1 mana and you have played 1 mana, and we are back to neutral. There is never a situation where you get to punish me, actually punish me, for playing a Sacred Elf. And in the situations where you don't actually punish my where you don't actually just 1-for-1 on my Sacred Elf, that means I get an extra mana every single turn that it's alive. So the upside of Sacred Elf is very, very high, and the downside is just a neutral. So I think that is a very problematic thing to happen. Like, for example, if Sacred Elf was a 2/2, that would be fine, because then I could play Tama and I could shoot it, and then I would draw a card. I wouldn't waste a card to kill your Sacred Elf, and that would be good. But that's not the world we live in. So the fact that Sacred Elf is only representing positive effects and never has a downside without Trueblade, like, I really think that Trueblade is a good card to exist, because we already know that most decks are green. We already know that green's the best card in Force of Will. Like, okay, Trueblade, like, green shouldn't also have Trueblade, but like, you got to do something, right? You can't just say, all right, in every deck, like only blue decks get to play Trueblade because only blue decks get to answer Sacred Elf, and then it's just like, okay, and every deck's green blue. Like, have you really changed the format at all? Like, every deck is still going to be green. So I do think it's problematic, but like, you're not going to solve the problem by like trying to say, oh, it shouldn't have been printed in the first place, it shouldn't exist. Like, I think Sacred Elf, and especially Sacred Elf and Lumia, because a Sacred Elf sticking in Lumia represents even more free mana. And in Lumia, Sacred Elf cannot be attacked if they use the mana. Like, because that's the thing, right? If I play a Sacred Elf and then I want to actually use the mana on turn 2 to play a powerful card, then you have the opportunity to perhaps play like a Sylvia, and then whatever, 3-drop I just played for free, you just make it so it can't block. You attack my Sacred Elf, you get a free card. You just killed my card for free. Like, that's good. That's nice. Then you get free things. But in Lumia, like, you just don't have that option. You literally have to have a removal spell. I think that's a problem. I think it's okay for Trueblade to exist, unless you also ban Sacred Elf. Like, that's the pendulum that I think has to be taken into consideration if you want to ban Trueblade. And I'm pretty okay with banning Trueblade and Sacred Elf. I think that would open up the doors to a lot of like other mid-rangey decks, like Shayla especially would like to not have Trueblade in the format, I think. Because then it can play some of its like cheaper cards that get bigger when it's raining and stuff like that, and maybe see a different style from that. But yeah, that's kind of just what I think about it. It's Trueblade versus Sacred Elf, either both or neither. That's my opinion. Lorite was, I think, the last one. Is that a Lord or Force Fire spell? I'm sorry I didn't do my research on this earlier. I think it's just Lorite. I'll talk about both anyway. So Lorite is something that I complained about earlier about keeping, rogue decks out. Like, it stops the God Arts that are very powerful for some of the other rulers in the set. But I think that we just need to have a card that can stop automatic abilities and activated abilities. I don't think those cards should be the same card, but since we don't have anything else and they're not printing anything else as far as we know, Lorite has to exist. I would like for them to do something different, but until I have confirmation that they're printing a card that stops Feyre's enter ability, like, for the love of God, make sure that I still have Lorite. Like, I would really like to see, in particular, automatic abilities of J-Rulers or of Rulers, like, be able to be hit. I would love a card that just says counter Kyric's enter ability, counter Feyre's enter ability, counter Lumia's flicker ability, but don't, like, also hit Resonators and don't also hit God's Arts, right? That would be a really cool card. But since it doesn't exist, like, Lorite has to exist. Especially with the new Feasting seal that got spoiled, where it flips for 1 mana and then, like that card's insane. I'll make a video about that card soon, I promise. I just want to see more of the set before I do. But that card, like, at worst, in my mind, you need 2 auras. You can even let it die, I don't care. 2 auras, 1 mana, untap 3 stones, draw 2 cards. That's disgusting. That shouldn't be on a goddamn ruler. Lorite should hit that card. Please leave Lorite in the format. I think it's very important right now that Lorite still exists. I do not want that card banned. And last but not least, Feyre spell. I haven't put a whole lot of thought in this. I think Severing Winds is a more problematic card. I think the fact that Feyre spell can counter Severing Winds is pretty cool. I don't really have an opinion. I think if you do plan on, like, hurting Sherry in some capacity, that, like, Feyre's spell is a card that is very good in Scheherazade, but not actually as good against Scheherazade as people think. Because Scheherazade gets to play their Resonators at instant speed, the only thing you can do to interact with those Resonators being played onto the field are things at instant speed, or else they basically have swiftness, right? So if I play my 11/11 for 3 on your turn, you can't use sorcery speed removal to kill it. You have to use instant speed removal, which means that my Feyre spells are very good at protecting my Resonators. It means that my 11/11, if you have, like, a separation of body and soul, for example, for those of you who don't know what that does, it just kills a Resonator that's attack is different from its printed attack. So the 8/8 that becomes an 11/11 would die to separation of body and soul. If I play my 11/11 on your turn, at the end of your turn, you don't get to separate it until my 11/11 has already declared an attack and probably killed one of your Resonators. And I think that's... So I think the Feyre spell is, like, making Scheherazade better than it is making it worse. So I really don't know how to evaluate Feyre's spell if we think that Scheherazade is going to be destroyed in some capacity. I don't think Feyre's spell... Like, I think there are other things you could hit in Scheherazade, but, like, I think Severing Winds is the bigger problem, because Severing Winds is better in decks that draw a lot of cards. When you have more cards than your opponent, when you're using your resources, your mana, to draw cards, with cards like Approaching the Truth in Scheherazade, with cards like the Lumia Resonator, the Vingolf Resonator in Lumia, when you have more cards, when your cards cost 0 mana, you get to abuse the fact that you're just dumpstering your opponent in card advantage. So Severing Winds is problematic for that, and I think that, like, Fair Spell being able to beat Severing Winds is something that should happen. Like, I shouldn't be an aggro deck and be like, okay, play my card, play my second card, oh, I got severed. That Severing Winds is your first card for the turn, so I can't sever your sever. I want to have a Fair Spell to be able to interact with that. So Fair Spell Severing Winds are, like, I just think that Severing Winds should be banned. I would like to see no Otherworld Dreams, no Severing. I could even say that Otherworld Dreams could come back without Severing. I had a lot of fun playing with Otherworld Dreams in the Wanderer format, and it really didn't feel like that oppressive, like with just Otherworld Dreams. So I would say ban Severing, bring back Otherworld Dreams, and then, like, I think Fair Spell can stay, because then you're playing with these 1-mana counter spells that counter each other. I think that's fine. That's what I would do if I was going to mess with that, but I've got other plans, all right? We're getting there. So, no, don't ban Lorite. I don't care about Fair Spell. Ban Severing, bring back Otherworld Dreams. Ava's a good ban. Don't ban Ruin Stories. Well, if that's my theoretical ban list, then we still have the Scheherazade problem, right? Well, that's just my opinion on those cards. My ban list would be ban Scheherazade. I think that the Ruler just does too much. I think that Ruin Stories would be a really cool card to put in other decks, and I don't think that we should try and, like, nerf Scheherazade but still make her playable. Like, no, the Scheherazade's absolutely bonkers. It's almost Reflect Refrain all over again. It's almost Fox all over again. Like, it does so goddamn much for so little. And you look back to, like, the format where Reflect was played. It was like 6 or 7 of every top 8 of every tournament, right? Fox, not so much. Fox wasn't really, like, super oppressive until they printed, like, specifically Demonic Dead and Severing Winds. And even now with, like, Griffin banned, like, it's because of just Demonic Dead. Like, the card, like, Fox is still kind of playable in New Frontiers, which I think is absolutely absurd. Like, I think that Fox should have been banned instead of Griffin. I think that Scheherazade should be banned instead of Ruin Stories. Like, just stop printing broken green rulers and then, like, printing really cool green cards to support those rulers, and then banning the really cool cards and leaving the problem around, right? Like, I think there are a lot of cool decks that could play Griffin and not be Fox, and like, have really fun interactive things going on. I think there are really cool decks that could play Ruin Stories and not be Scheherazade and have really cool, fun things going on. So, like I really want to see Scheherazade get the X, not Ruin Stories. I want to see Severing Winds get banned. I want to see Otherworld Dreams come back. And I want Lorite and Trueblade to be in the format, and that's my ban list. Ban Scheherazade, ban Severing Winds, bring back Otherworld Dreams. I don't think it's going to happen, though, because we've seen in the past that Force of Will, like, didn't ban Fox, they banned Griffin, and this might have been the European influence, so they might once again follow the European influence, which would be kind of annoying. So I just don't see it happening. Like, I think they are going to go for the Ruin Stories Ava ban, which I think is fine. I don't want to see Trueblade banned, and if they really do want to ban it, I want Sacred Elf banned as well. But let's talk about what I actually think is going to happen. I think Ruin Stories goes. I think Ava goes. I think Trueblade goes, and I don't think they're going to ban Lorite. I don't think that's going to happen, because I think with the feasting that's got printed, like, they have to know. They have to have done some internal testing to know that feasting might be an unmitigated problem if it's allowed to exist. So I don't know what else is being printed in the set, and I'll do a follow-up video as we get more spoilers, you know. But I think that we're going to lose Ruin Stories, Ava, and Trueblade, and I do think that's kind of a mistake to lose Trueblade. And for whatever reason, in the first place, they decided to ban Otherworld Dreams and not Severing. I think they just, like, want to let us play with Severing. Let us play with Severing and have a fun experience for a little bit longer before Severing rotates, and they just bring back Otherworld Dreams, no problem. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on the ban list for now. I'll make a follow-up as we get more spoilers and the set comes closer, and, you know, eventually I'll make a final prediction, and then I'm sure they'll actually drop their ban list, and I'll make a reaction video saying, this is garbage, force. No, hopefully it's good. Hopefully it's good, right? Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed the video for today. And, yeah, I don't have anything else to say. Bye.